All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and we've got an awesome episode today. We're going to be going over the Duel of the Fates script, which was the original script for Episode 9 before Rise of Skywalker was taken over by JJ Abrams. So this was written by Colin Trevorrow, and I will be joined today with my resident script expert, my sister. Jen is joining the show again to give her expert opinions on, not just Star Wars, but on screenplays and, does this work? Of course, we want to be fair to Colin Trevorrow. This is a draft. This is not the final script. So we do understand that all the ideas here might not be fleshed out. They might have been changed eventually, but we're just going based on the script. The script is available online, but I thought it'd be cool to kind of give you an overview, kind of go through it, give you the big points that go on in it. If you had already seen the concept art, there were some really cool shots from those, but we'll kind of be going through all the big story beats and stopping along the way at points that we think are super important, or if we really didn't like how they went about it. But yeah, I'm super excited. Jen, how are you feeling?
I'm really excited. I've listened to people talk about this script. I didn't know how to get it. So when you told
Mhm.
me you had a copy, I think my exact text was like, send it to me right now. I
Oh
was
yeah,
so pumped to read
I
this.
was all over the dark web. No, I'm kidding. It was on like Reddit. It was super easy to find. I don't know why it was hard at one point, but yeah, it was really fun to read. This is like the second screenplay I might have read through in my life. So this was cool, and it really was, awesome to read a Star Wars screenplay before seeing it. It's different than a book. It's so much different media.
Yeah, I've never read a Star Wars script. So
Mm. Hey, Lyra.
that's my dog. Lita, if you're going to be on the podcast, you have to be shushies. Yes, please.
She's just giving her opinion about the script.
This is the first Star Wars script I've read. This is actually the first like blockbuster script I've read.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of like classic scripts. I've read a lot of like modern. The most modern script I've read that like got turned into a movie was King Richard with Will Smith.
Mm.
Um, so it was cool to see that translate, but it was so weird when I was reading some of the descriptions because it would say stuff like, we know their bond is strong over the decades. And it's like, it's funny because the script is written very much with a knowing audience, which is
Yeah.
interesting. And like the way they describe Chewbacca talking, I never would have, I would have just said Chewbacca roars, but they literally like, roar,
Yeah,
like in
they
the
really went into
dialogue.
detail on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really cool to, imagine like there was a very visual script. Like they tried to
Mhm.
make everything super, visual so in your head you can imagine these huge set pieces, and Star Wars is all about visual effects. So being
Yeah.
able to, translate that, I thought was pretty impressive, and I think there were some really really cool set pieces in this, as well as
100%.
planet and locations were awesome.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the sadder parts of this script versus the movie we got.
Mm,
Reading the script, I was like, I would have loved to have seen this place. I would have
mm.
loved to have seen this battle. I would have loved to have seen this fight.
So would you say it's safe to say that you would have rather Duel of the Fates than Rise of Skywalker?
Just by the title alone,
Hmm.
honest to God. Like
Yeah, the
Rise of
title is pretty
Skywalker.
sweet.
Oh my God. The title of Rise of Skywalker, when I saw it, I was like, in my head, I was thinking, I don't even know what that means. Like, is Luke gonna come back? Like, we
Hmm.
all, unfortunately, RIP, we all knew that Leia had left us.
Yeah.
She passed on. So I was like, what does this mean? This Rise of Skywalker? Like, I was like, maybe it means Ben Solo, but he's not the protagonist. It was very confusing. Like, it didn't make me excited. It just made me confused. Whereas Duel of the Fates, it was like, it just knocks you on your tush. Like, you know exactly what that means. It ties back to the original prequel, which is the beginning of the Skywalker saga. Like, something that just, and this is coming from a screenwriter perspective, something that's important about titles is it has to do a few things. It has to communicate tone. An action movie is usually a verb, one word.
Mm.
A romance is usually like a quirky play on words. So like for this, it has to be epic. Also, it has to describe your protagonist. Phantom Menace, like that describes Anakin. He as a young kid, we don't know what he's going to turn into. It describes our two main antagonists. We don't know who Darth Maul is. He's this Phantom Menace. We also don't know Darth Sidious, the Phantom Menace. It's like, it's supposed to describe like key characters or a key threat or the protagonist itself. So Duel of the Fates also did a great job of describing our two main characters of this story arc, which was Rey and Kylo. They are dual. They are two halves of the same, like, what's that? What are they called? A force dyad. They're two halves of the Force dyad. The physical act of dueling, something they have to do by the end of the film. They have to confront each other. And it's also about the whole story, the whole saga, this whole 3-movie arc is about finding your own path, being, whether you're from a dynasty or from no one. The whole point is you're supposed to match your fate. You're supposed to create your own destiny. And I just felt like that title was so poignant and so on brand for not only the ending of this 9-episode saga, but also for our characters we've been watching for these 3 movies. That was such a missed opportunity. Like, if they had taken one thing from this script, it should have been that title, 100%. But clearly it didn't pass the brain trust for marketing, because they were like, well, they don't know what that means. I know Skywalker. Everyone knows Skywalker. Put that in the title. And I feel like that was the beginning and the end, because after reading this script, it's very obvious what played and did not play in focus groups. And that's how they wrote the movie we got.
I think, honestly, the main reason the title isn't Duel of the Fates is because they had Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi. They needed an R word, an R action verb, as the end of the trilogies. At the end of every trilogy, it's Revenge, Return, Rise. You know, I think that's probably why they went with it. Of course, I think Duel of the Fates is a much better title, but I honestly think they were trying to keep that trend or whatever.
Well, they followed the formal. They follow the format. Sorry, Rise, powerful, inspiring verb. Skywalker, protagonist. Except Skywalker is not the protagonist.
Yeah, Sith, Jedi, Skywalker. Yeah, so
yeah,
which is interesting because Darth Vader, that's his path, or the other way around, but still the same thing. But without further ado, we can jump right in. Obviously, Colin Trevorrow. Another thing I just want to mention before we get in, very much digs into the depths of Star Wars. He definitely uses a lot of deep cuts, and it was really inspiring to see a lot of Clone Wars stuff be found in this, and Rebels as well. So that was a really cool thing, you know, just for me personally. I know maybe that might not have worked for a lot of people in the general Star Wars population, but I think people that love Star Wars and have seen all the shows would have been rewarded with this script.
Well, I think that's something that he actually did quite well, is he introduced stuff that were familiar to level of fan like you and me, but he also introduced it in a way that a fan who had no idea what those things were would be intrigued and then brought there. And I felt like that was really, like, that's a great way to introduce something that's known to some people but not all. Like,
yeah, he definitely didn't dig in as deep into each of those things, but he hit them just enough at the surface level for you to be like, yes, I love that that's in this, but someone that didn't know who it was would be like, oh, that's really cool. I wonder what's the deeper story behind that. So I'm going to start getting into the script. After we go through this, I definitely encourage everyone to go check out the concept art. It's really dark. It's really cool. And it's out there. So you can definitely see that if you don't want to read the script.
For sure.
But yeah, here we go with the overview of the Duel of the Fates scripts by Colin Trevorrow. So the opening crawl kind of explains how the First Order has an iron fist in the galaxy. They've cut off all communications between neighboring systems, so everyone is isolated, and it stresses that there's only a few planets that are not under First Order control, and that basically everything, is punishable by death. So it's a very dark time in the galaxy. And basically we open with Finn and Poe raiding this shipyard for the First Order, and BB-8 is undercover. He's like painted in black. It was actually pretty funny. I love that. It was pretty funny how they described this. And basically they're pulling off this mission. They meet someone there, and a tussle kind of starts. First Order troops notice, and then a Tusken kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, "Who's this?" And it's Rey disguised as a Tusken Raider, which I thought was pretty funny. And so then there's kind of this whole fiasco that ensues. You can see that they try to establish this connection between Rey and Poe that they kind of led into with Last Jedi at the end, where he's like, "Hi, I'm Poe," and she's like, "I know," and she's like, "I'm Rey," and he's like, "I know." So they tried to establish that love connection at the end of Last Jedi, and that's very much front and center.
Oh, that's what that was about?
I think so. Yeah, the
I
tension
thought
there.
I thought it was like a Bathosy type of joke where they're both really connected to Finn. So but for some reason, this is the end of the second movie, and it's the first time they themselves are meeting.
Nah, I felt the tension there. There was the twinkle in the eyes and the smile.
They're both attractive. I think it's just because they're both attractive.
Exactly, and here you go. I mean, it's front and center in this strip, so I think they were going for that. But yeah, so Poe's like, "I'm worried about you, your safety wise, and then romantically wise, he's worried about her." So then there's this big action sequence, and I guess they have some migrant children working at this shipyard, and basically they hold up the First Order troops so our band can get away. Rey is like, "No, I have to help them," but Poe's like, "No, we have to get out of here. They made that choice. They're gonna give us this opportunity to get away." And then a cool thing happens, which I think kind of shows up in Rise of Skywalker. As Finn's trying to leave, he gets grabbed by the stormtrooper, and his helmet is open, and Finn recognizes him. So they kind of have that same story thread of Finn, wanting to save other stormtroopers that were taken as kids and kind of brainwashed into becoming First Order troopers. So they kind of use that same thing here, which I thought was really cool. I think in this one, it is a little more natural than in the Rise of Skywalker one. I think in Rise of Skywalker, it's kind of like, here's a band of people that ran away. There you go. In this one, it's kind of like he wants to be an active role in getting them free.
I was going to say, I feel like in Rise, they were already freed.
Right. Yeah.
So
they had already escaped.
Literally, it's like, okay, so then what does Finn have to do with this?
I know, right?
Like, it takes the kind of the wind out of that sail.
Yeah. So we get that story thread started here. And then the Knights of Ren are ordered to show up. Basically, the Knights of Ren take a much more active role in this movie, I think. I mean, they show up in Rise of Skywalker, but
they're kind of like the pursuing antagonist of this.
Right.
Script.
They're kind of under Kylo's orders right now, but right now in the script, we don't know where Kylo is. But they're basically doing his bidding right now. So basically, the band gets on a dreadnought, and they basically steal a First Order dreadnought. There's this whole dialogue with Poe being like, "Oh, I can fly this," and Rey's like, "You can't fly this," and then she basically just uses a Jedi mind trick on the pilot to pilot it out of here, and Poe's like, "Oh, okay, well, I could have done that." Then there's this nice little banter dialogue kind of thing, like how they can jump from hyperspace from the dock between Poe and Rey, and they kind of finish each other's sentences, and you get a little more of that. Oh, look, they have a connection. Look, they would be so good together. I don't think you
just get a nod. Poe literally says,
"We work good." Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you see? They've literally had this conversation, and Rey's like, "Not the time."
Yeah.
I was like, so okay. I didn't realize we'd already missed the introduction of this lovey-dovey moment.
Yeah, they jump right into it. So basically, they hyper jump out of there, and what's left is the Knights of Ren and the First Order, and you see there's a visible tension. The stormtroopers draw their weapons on the Knights of Ren ready to fight back. So you can see that Hux and Kylo are still on different pages. The First Order wants one thing, and Kylo's basically just using them to get to his ultimate goal at the end. But the little interesting piece here is that the Knights of Ren leader uses the Darksaber to kill the admiral in charge of this First Order shipyard for letting the Resistance get away. So the Darksaber is involved.
I was going to say, I would have loved to, that's a scenario where I would have been as a casual Star Wars watcher, been like, oh my God, what a sick weapon. But you don't need to know the whole history. But for people like us, we would have been like, there it is. Right. That's a Darksaber. It would have had different levels of, the way it was used and introduced is cool enough for people who don't know the meaning behind it. And for the people that do know the meaning behind it, it's a surprise. So I felt like that's a great example of what he does throughout the script of legacy items and legacy places that we would know. Like that's kind of how he treats all of the little Easter eggs and deep cuts throughout the script.
Definitely. So that kind of ends this first opening action scene. Then they jump to Coruscant, which is a really big location in this script, which I think is an awesome idea because it's kind of how the Empire started and how Sidious worked his way up. So basically, they describe Coruscant now as the structures that we were used to in the prequels are now being built over, and that's like the Old Republic now, which is funny because those structures replaced the Old Republic before then.
Exactly.
But basically, yeah, so.
Well, like when we see, I think it's episode 2 is where we get the chase throughout Coruscant, and you get to see all the different levels.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a very visual way of showing progress, in quotes.
Right.
Like it's not so much that you can make something new, you're just building something on what's already there.
Yeah.
And it's just constantly like covering up and squishing down what was there before.
Yeah, just new regimes coming on top of each other.
Exactly. And it's kind of almost, I don't know if it was intentionally defeatist, because I feel like Rose's arc through this version of the script was very much like gung-ho for the little people and constantly reminding the crew and the audience of the little people, of the people that get left behind, get stepped on. And I feel like it was a little unintentionally disheartening, because it kind of makes you think, even if we defeat this first order, someone's just going to come and do this. Like this is just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if they ever resolved that.
I don't remember, to be honest. I don't think I really noted it. If it was done, I didn't really note it.
Poe brings it up at the end, which we can either talk about now or then.
No. We'll get to the end. So yeah, we have this new Coruscant. Basically, it's very covered in propaganda. There's refugees, there's immigrants. It's basically overrun. And we're introduced to this new character, Dade, who is 12.
Love him, by the way.
Yeah, he's
a character.
He's a cool little character. He sticks up for people that are being abused by the First Order. You kind of get like an Ezra Bridger vibe when he was on Lothal.
Ezra and Cassian were mixed into one character.
Yeah,
and he uses them very smart as well in this script. He's not just like a one-off. He definitely has a payoff too, which is nice.
Yep. He becomes like a central piece of the story. So then we kind of move into like the capital structure of it. So it's this big open arena plaza kind of thing, which is basically just used for executions. Hux is in a big hologram form. Basically they caught the guy that Poe and all them had met up with at the shipyard, and basically there's this big lightsaber guillotine, which is pretty cool, which is a pretty cool idea.
Way to do it for sure.
Yeah, and he's basically like, give up the First Order or the Resistance base or die, and then he was just like, yeah, just kill me, just do it.
Yeah.
And then we get the lightsaber guillotine.
Do you think that place is a new place on Coruscant, or did you kind of envision it to be over where like the Imperial Senate used to be, or where like the Jedi Temple used to be?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really look into it too much. I kind of figured that they wanted to either build up a new kind of spot or kind of tear down the old and just build over the new, because it looks like they had a whole new structure for it. So I think they tore down most of the old, or at least it was in like a different spot or something like that. That's what I got from that.
Okay.
So then, we're seeing Hux kind of going through his side of the political side of the First Order. He's kind of the figurehead for Kylo, basically. And we get this scene where Hux goes into this, basically a war room with all these galactic warlords and underground leaders. So they're described as being tribal, wealthy, elaborate robes, stolen jewels. And they're concerned about the sparks of rebellion. So it seems like the First Order and the underworld are kind of working together to completely control the galaxy. I don't know whether it's funding or muscle, not sure, but they make a point of saying like these are underground warlords. Hux wants the Jedi dead, Rey and Luke. Luke has already passed on, but they don't really know that. And Hux says, that the Knights of Ren are hunting her, but they're like, okay, the Knights of Ren, but where's Kylo? And then boom, we cut to Kylo, and where's Kylo?
I also like how it kind of like the Knights of Ren kind of take the place of the Inquisitors in this version, in like this part of the story. because this is exactly what happened after Revenge of the Sith. A bunch of force sensitive people were used to hunt down and track the remaining Jedi. And I felt like that was a nice subtle tie-in to show how history continues to repeat itself. Like you're always going to have one hunting the other. And then, yeah, like you said, we cut to Kylo. And I don't know if you noticed this, but I do know you love your deep cut. So I'm going to see if you bring it up. And if not, I'm going to interject.
Okay. So we cut to Kylo, and Kylo is on Mustafar, and he's bearded. They said it, a bearded Adam Driver, looks awesome. And we see the Vader's castle from Rogue One, and it's like, damn, we're going to see some cool Sith stuff, which we don't really see unless you're watching Rebels or Clone Wars. So basically, Kylo's on this mission, and he goes into Vader's temple, and he's visited by Luke, which is really cool. Go ahead, Jen.
The deep cut is when Kylo's walking up to Vader's abandoned castle. He tells the droid to stay here, which Anakin does in Revenge of the Sith. He tells R2,
oh, stay on the ship.
Stay here. Yeah.
Oh.
So I saw that and I was like, boy knows his facts.
Wow.
Impressed with that. Yeah.
That poor droid.
That was a deep cut.
No, that's good stuff. So yeah, Luke's ghost visits Kylo as he moves through the temple and basically just is telling him like, this is all for nothing. This is just emptiness. You're being promised nothing. This isn't going to work out the way you think it is, Kylo. And he just says, go home, go to Leia, turn away now. And Kylo's just kind of shooing him off like, you don't know what I want, all this stuff. I want power and all this stuff. And he eventually gets to what he's looking for, which is a Sith holocron. And what's in the Sith holocron is a recording from the Emperor years ago. So they make it seem like, hey, the Emperor's back. Not really. It's just a recording, unlike in Rise of Skywalker where he's actually back. Basically, it's a contingency plan where he says, if Luke does strike me down, I want you, Vader, to take him to Ramnakor, which is this new system Sith kind of planet that I'll kind of discuss later, and find this Sith master named Tor Valum, another new character in the ethos of Sith, which I think is very cool, and we'll definitely get into that later as well.
So this character has never been seen before, not even the Darth Plagueis book?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if that was like a legacy character that I didn't know.
He might have been. I don't remember it at all, okay. But yeah, he is a very cool character, and he's basically like, take Luke there, and basically this Tor Valem is the master of the Sith Lord who instructed Sidious. So like you said, he was Plagueis's master, and his hope was basically to get Luke to harness the power of Mortis. So now we got Mortis coming into play,
which makes sense as like what Sidious would want to happen. I mean, I wrote a big question mark over this part of the script because I was like, why wouldn't Sidious want that power? Like, why would he say like, hey, if I die, give it to Luke? That's the part I didn't really get, unless I was thinking, I was like, maybe his plan, if all went right, is Luke would be the light side dyad and Sidious would be the dark side dyad. And then he would take all the power from Luke within that. Like, I was like, maybe it's supposed to be like a trick, but yeah, I didn't really get why Palpatine would want to give Luke that power, especially if he's already been destroyed. Like that was when I started to have cracks in the story. I was like, that doesn't seem really motivated. That feels just like, this is what we want to happen in this story. So we have to like shoehorn in how we start the story happening. So
I can agree with that. That makes sense.
Yeah, that was my first little meh moment.
Yeah. So basically the Sith holocron recognizes that it's not Vader, it's Kylo, and it shoots this red lightning bolt into him and his eyes, and his veins turn purple. It's very grotesque, and he's like screaming in pain and all this stuff, and then the scene cuts away from that. So Kylo's dealing with some stuff.
Yeah. I also that was also a weird thing for me as well. Like, it took halfway through this recording for this technology to realize it wasn't Vader. I was like, at first I thought it was going to be cool because I was like, oh, because he's a Skywalker, maybe it recognizes that force in him. Yeah. But yeah, I don't really get why it like kind of thought it was him and then didn't. Like, that also felt kind of flimsy, but that probably would have been cleared up with some rewrites.
Yeah, my thought was that, like what you said, I think it thought it was a Skywalker. It was a Skywalker, but it wasn't the right one. So then it was like, okay, I gotta
Just kidding.
go into security protocol.
Just kidding. We're
Yeah,
gonna troubleshoot
exactly.
this situation. And then
So
we're back with the
yeah,
resistance.
we're back with the resistance. We jump back. Finn and Leia are talking, and he's trying to comfort Rey because Rey just kind of let those migrant kids, fight her battle for her so they could get away. And Finn tries to tell her, it's all right. And she's like, it's not all right, and that she still has this deep connection to Kylo, and Finn's like, you can't change him, and she's like, I can, because you proved to me that people can change, because you were a first order trooper, and now you're my closest friend and confidant. So I really like that line from Rey. I think she has a lot of these lines in the movie that I really enjoyed, and this was one of them that stuck out to me.
This scene had a lot of good lines. The other one I really liked was when Leia realizes that Rey isn't doing good, like she's kind of like off on her own, and she says like, how is she doing? Finn's like, maybe you could talk to her, to Leia. And Leia says she doesn't need a master right now, she needs a friend. And I also felt like that was very poignant of Leia's journey with being a Jedi, as well as what Rey's journey is going to be in finding her own path. Like all the other protagonists before her would constantly seek counsel with masters. And I think for Rey, since she's kind of doing her own thing, I just felt like that was a very truthful line. And I really enjoyed that a lot.
No, that's true. It always kind of, in Star Wars, always, where's the master? Where's the answers? Or you have to look within yourself, but they never really say, like, you need a friend. You need someone to just talk to. So I thought that was a cool little new wrinkle.
Yeah.
So
and
basically,
it's kind of like what the theme of this story was about. This script, like this film, was about community, friendship. It wasn't about doing it alone. And I felt that was like that was one of the nice moments where a legacy character was embracing that theme versus might have been the theme of previous movies, which always is a great way of getting an audience on board with it as well.
And that theme found its way into Rise of Skywalker as well. With It takes all of us. They only win because they think they outnumber us and they try and do it fear, but there's more of us. So I like that as well. Yeah. So basically the resistance plan now is to attack the capital. But unfortunately they can't communicate because, like I said in the opening crawl, the First Order is cutting off all communications between people, so they can't really coordinate this attack on Coruscant. So Rey kind of suggests there's a nexus in the Jedi Temple that uses the Force to communicate. They say it's much more efficient than any technology they have today, which is interesting that it's very old, but it's better than what they're using now. So basically she's like, we have to go there. And we're supposed to think
that Rey knows this because of her reading of the Jedi text?
That's my guess, yeah.
Because she pulls out like a scroll or something.
Yeah, she has the Jedi text from Luke's island or something.
I was gonna say that didn't get burned down with the
tree. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the plan. So that's basically what they want to do. They're like, we have to go there. We got to open up this nexus and send out the signal that, hey, we want to coordinate and attack on Coruscant. So that's the big move for the Resistance in this movie. So then we get this dojo scene with Rey where she's, sparring. Luke's kind of in her ear. They're kind of going back and forth. And while her dojo scene is going on, we go back to Kylo, who's still in bad shape. And this was another cool scene where they use Beskar, or Mandalorian armor, to cover up his, side of his face with like the purple, veins and all this stuff that he's getting messed up with from the Sith holocron. And Rey, being so connected to Kylo, she feels like this armor being melted onto his face. So now she's in the dojo freaking out and he's going through the same pain. And they kind of share this Force connection, which ends up having them kind of both on a mountain, a snowy mountain, in front of two thrones. And they both kind of inherently recognize that this is Mortis. So this was a really cool kind of scene that was similar to the one in Rise of Skywalker where they're on, the snowy planet and he's on the ship and she's on the ground and they're kind of both in the same place at the same time. So where the scene kind of goes down for me is Luke's kind of philosophy. It seems like he didn't learn anything in Last Jedi. I love what they did with Luke in Last Jedi for the most part, but it seems like he didn't really...
Can Force Ghosts learn? Or are they kind of just stuck in the...
they're technically part of the cosmic and living force, so like they can still learn and grow. So I didn't really like that Luke was kind of the same kind of cynical self. He basically says like, you can't let Kylo get to Mortis, and Rey's like, you want me to kill Leia's son? And then he gives some, Jedi jargon. The Force guides us towards balance. It doesn't always show us what we want to see.
But Rey's comment to it,
yeah,
Rey's comeback was so boss. I loved it.
Yeah, so basically, I don't hate Luke's line here, but I wish there was another piece to it where he says, it doesn't always show us what we want to see, but it doesn't always show us how to achieve it. So, like, he's not saying, like, you have to kill him. He's saying, like, this is just what it's showing you. You can go about it any way you want. But it seems like he's very definitive. He's like, no, you have to stop him. You have to kill him. So I didn't really love that. But like you said, Rey comes back with this awesome line where she's basically like, light extinguishes dark, dark suffocates light. How is this balance?
Yeah.
And I thought that was perfect.
Exactly. It keeps happening over and over again. Just like I was saying earlier with the Coruscant thing, like there's just going to be a new regime. There's going to be another war. Like life repeats itself, which also lends itself to the philosophy of George Lucas's idea of Star Wars, which is just like life is poetry. Like things repeat, motifs repeat, because that's what it is to be part of the living force. Like nothing's original. Everything just keeps getting recycled and renewed. And I felt like this is where Rey really breaks out and tries to become something different. And I actually like how the scene ends when Luke says, if that's what you believe, the last Jedi is dead. And she goes, maybe he is. I felt like that was so reminiscent of Ahsoka's line where she's like, I'm no Jedi. And I felt like that really was the most positive springboard from where we were left off in Last Jedi. Like maybe the answer isn't to become a Jedi. Maybe the answer isn't to distinguish the dark side. Maybe there is a new way. And I really, really felt like this was something that Rey can be the one that teaches characters a new path. And I really felt like this is where Rey earned her stripes as a protagonist. I was like, you're the reason you're chosen, because only you could have thought of this solution. Like this couldn't have happened in Luke. Luke was too good. Anakin was too troubled. You, on the other hand, are both. And I really I felt like that was a really strong piece that I think they really should have carried into the final version.
Yeah. Well, here at Mark of Balance, we love balance. We love talking about balance. So seeing this
We're
line
all for the balance,
and seeing this kind of be the main story thread for Rey in this screenplay was really awesome. I really liked that. It was very much leaning into there's no light without dark and there's no dark without light. Like it has to exist together. Like the true meaning of
balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what balance is.
And that's why I liked The Last Jedi, because it was kind of moving towards that. Like the Jedi were like, you guys aren't the only people in the galaxy that understand the Force. Like it's everywhere. We shouldn't be able to control it. Like it's a balance.
Yeah, the Force don't own the Jedi don't own the Force.
Exactly. So I like that very much. So yeah, the dojo scene I think overall was good, but that one line between Luke, I was just like, okay. So yeah, we go into the next scene. We have Kylo with his new helmet. They kind of describe it as Vader's breathing, but much different. Like I felt like they said it was much raspier, it was much darker. So kind of fulfilling his own prophecy of wanting to be Vader and unintentionally getting there. Then we get this interesting scene where Hux has this lightsaber in a case. He's basically like collecting old Jedi relics.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
And he tries to like use the Force on it and it doesn't work. And he gets like frustrated like a kid. He's like, oh, why isn't it working? And he's like trying to reach out with the Force. And then Kylo comes in and he's basically like, I wasn't doing anything. So then there's this.
I thought that was genius because it kind of shows a new insecurity in Hux, which we all know Hux is a insecure character, both in his power, masculinity, just everything. Yeah. And I felt like that showed kind of in a very simple, elegant way, the root of that insecurity is that he is afraid of people who wield the Force, and he is afraid that they are more powerful than him. And he does feel a disadvantage. And it kind of is a nice callback to the original film when that one guy, not General Tarkin, but that other guy that I think Darth Vader chokes out. He's like, that you're the only member of that stupid religion or something like that.
Oh yeah, at the table.
That dying religion. And I feel like that's very much where the galaxy was at that point in the story, that Jedi, the Force, it's just a silly religion you're just a bunch of space wizards, like very realistic. And I feel like this version of the galaxy is very much like people want power and they feel like the Jedi and the Sith have that power and people just want to be them. And I really felt like that was a great way to infuse the theme and Hux's insecurity into one fluid moment, because I feel like everyone in the story is looking for power. But I think the point is you have to find how you can access your type of power. Not everyone can be a force wielder. Not everyone can be a Jedi, but that doesn't mean you're powerless.
Yeah.
And I feel like Hux just never has that, because he's a villain. He just never has that character arc where he embraces what makes him powerful. He just keeps trying to be something he's not. And it unfortunately ends up being at his own expense for comedic value.
I was going to say, if you didn't want to think about all that when reading that part or seeing that in the movie theater, it's also just a comedic, very funny scene to see him frustrated as usual in all the movies in the sequels.
I'm sorry.
I'm not saying that was a bad thing. I'm saying I'm trying to, not all listeners are going to be screenplay junkies. Some people are just going to see that and be like, that's hilarious that he thinks that he can control the Force just because he wants it. Like, he's always been this stubborn brat of a character. And just seeing that personified in him trying to use the Force to no avail is hilarious. But yeah, your analysis is also correct.
Yeah, and it's also relatable because, like, who didn't try and use the Force at one point in their childhood?
Of course. I still do.
Of course.
I still do.
I feel like I do have it when I'm at like red lights and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pull up and it's gonna be green, green, and it goes bing, and I'm like, there it is. There's my Force. That's it. I don't know why it's using it for this, but I got it.
Mine's more like I lay down to go to bed and I forget like my water on the other side of the room. It's just like, I don't want to get up. Can I just like please
just reach out your hand?
Yeah. So
One
yeah,
day
basically
the water bottle will just pass by you and go to someone else.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. Go to Ray behind me. Yeah, so basically Kylo comes in and there's, this tension between them. And Kylo's basically like, you take care of the Resistance, I'll take care of Rey. And that's kind of how they go about the rest of the movie, kind of very much in different lanes. So then we cut back to the Resistance, and they're kind of making jokes about they want to destroy this signal jammer, basically. And I think it's Poe or one of them basically says, oh, there's no exhaust ports or anything in this design, so we can't just go right to the center and blow it up. So I thought that was pretty funny to kind of call that out. So basically they're assembling the strike team, and Rey's like, I can't go to Coruscant. And Poe is like, no, you have to come with us. And they kind of argue. And she's like, no, I have to go to Mortis alone. And that's when Poe's like, no, my beloved, you cannot go alone. I do not, you won't be safe.
The person I love more than anything in this world in 33 pages. You
cannot go alone.
We have built up this character.
Yeah. And then this was a little bit of a weird part because Poe starts to quote like Jedi stuff. Like he knows a little too much for like an ace pilot. Like I felt like they just gave him too much Jedi knowledge. Like he's like,
what do you mean?
In this scene, he talks about, he mentions stuff about Jedi not being able to have attachments, and then he talks about Mortis. Like, why would he know about Mortis? Like, that Mortis is like an ambiguous concept to Jedi themselves. Like, why would a normal pilot know about Mortis? Unless it's like a space kind of tale, like the Bermuda Triangle when you're flying through space.
They mentioned it earlier in the script when she talks about Mortis to Luke, and she goes, but it's a myth, right? Like, I feel like just how the Jedi were like almost treated like fairy tale stories. Like it's like finding out the fountain of youth is real, or finding out the like whatever the cup is, the magical cup. What's the
Holy Grail?
Yeah, there it is. Like finding out the Holy Grail is real, Yeah. I equated it to that. And
I guess, yeah.
Because I was gonna say, like, I feel like he has a very contradictory point to what you just made, where he goes, where's the line? I'm literally just scrolling right now. Oh, she goes, I have to bring an end to this all. I have to confront him. And Poe kind of makes fun of her and goes, you're just gonna confront him. Who talks like that? Like, I feel like he actually did a very opposite thing where he kind of makes fun of the whole like Jedi monkeyness.
Yeah.
not monkeyness.
Not the animal monkey, like being a monk. Yeah.
Yeah, being a monk. And I don't know, me, like, as far as his understanding that Jedi can't have attachments and stuff like that, like, clearly they introduced this love subplot early in the script as something that's already been talked about between him and Rey. Like,
Yeah,
he
like
said,
I
"See how
know
good
he
we work
probably
together?"
has. I know he probably has some knowledge. I just thought it was a little odd, like he had all this knowledge because Han
Yeah.
Solo in the first movie, like he didn't even believe in the Force, like, and now Poe, who's basically another version of Han Solo, just a little bit more refined, has this knowledge of Mortis, the Jedi teachings, and all this stuff. I don't know. It felt a little odd for me. Like you said, he kind of backtracks on it in another thing. So the first time I read it, that was just kind of my thoughts.
Okay.
But basically, since Mortis isn't really like known where it is, he is like, well, I have to go with you because I have to show you someone who's Force sensitive that can guide you through the unknown regions to find Mortis, and that's basically how he gets on this
Ties
trip
himself
with her.
into her journey. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Which,
then
I guess that turned into the Spice Girl, not Spice Girls, but
you got to work
the
on your
chick
word
we
choice.
yeah. I'm just on it today with all these word choices.
Yeah.
The chick we see in the 9th movie with the
Yeah,
helmet.
I forgot Zora something.
Yeah, Zori. I feel like it originated as this type of character.
Yeah, I think so because it's like someone from Poe's past, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So basically, that's their adventure. They're going that way. Finn is obviously going to lead the strike team, and he has these flashbacks to the trooper he knew, and now he feels like this ownership that he needs to save more of these people that were the same like him. So that's kind of Finn's journey. So I'm very much phrasing this whole thing, but I just put down what I thought was most important from the scenes.
I will say this though, at this point in the story, I felt like we should have had some sort of indication of what Rose's arc was going to be. I just don't think they gave her an arc even in this.
I think she was very much like supporting to the highest degree.
Yeah, she was just meant to be like a mechanic. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of sad because they introduced her in the second movie as being this like counter to everything, like she was very much the everyman in Last Jedi. Like she didn't come from money, she doesn't have any special powers, she's pretty good at being a mechanic, but she's not like Poe where he's the best pilot in the world. Like she's just kind of
she's just a normal person.
Yeah, like coming along for the ride. Yeah. And she literally is introduced fangirling over Finn, which was meant to furthermore put her as the stand-in for the audience member. And I just felt like they should have given her some sort of arc, maybe not even like a dramatic arc or anything like that, because she's very consistent in the story as just being like, I'm gonna get it done, I'm gonna get it done, I'm gonna get it done. But I don't know,
I think she did. I think she was just serviceable for the story. I mean, like you said, she had to get it done, and she filled her role, and she was just that everyday person hero. She didn't have powers or anything, but she did her job to help later in the script that we'll talk about. So
yeah, I'm just saying I wish they would have.
Yeah,
I guess I wish they would have just given her like something to sink her teeth into, even if it wasn't much, just a little bit.
Right. So in the next scene, we have a really awesome scene with Kylo, once again speaking to this melted Vader mask that he had in Force Awakens. And he's basically talking to him, and he's like, you let love cloud your judgment. I will succeed where you failed. And then he drops the mask off the edge, basically like throwing it off the edge, throwing away like this obsession. And then he goes to Hux, and he's like, okay, I'm leaving. And Hux is like, good, you go deal with that. And I think Hux says that this either to himself or one of the higher ranking generals. He's basically like, I'll let him and Rey kill each other as Jedi and Sith always do, which I really like that line. And then he's like, then in the end, we will rise to power, which I thought that was a cool play for Hux. I think it was a perfect line because it's so true. That's just what happens. Like the Jedi and Sith always so concerned with each other and not the game around it. So I really enjoyed that.
And once again, that was like another layer of the theme that like this stuff is just going to keep repeating and happening. Like this, if this is the same order, no pun intended, then this is how it's going to continue happening. Like someone's going to rise up. It's either going to be the Jedi in charge or the Sith. The other side's going to take them down. There's going to be a war until the other side wins, and it's just going to keep cycling and cycling. And that's what I'm saying. Like this is page 40, I think. And this is now the third or fourth time this writer has infused the theme again, but through a completely different character.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just, that's what I'm saying. Like, this was a better script just in general than
Yeah.
what
So
we
page 40 out of 130 as it was. So we're about
126.
so we're about a third away through the movie so far. Just to give everyone everyone that's not used to reading scripts or anything, we're basically a third through the movies. So then we get this whole emotional goodbye scene. Everyone's going their separate ways to do their different tasks and such.
This was my first heart on the script.
Okay. I'm not sure. It might be my first heart. But Leia and Rey have a convo. And this is another thing with Luke and Leia in this movie where Leia says, like, she doesn't believe Kylo can be saved. Once again, which I was like, damn, like, why? These people are just giving up on everyone. This old guard is just giving up on everyone. And I didn't particularly love that. But I did like the line where she says later on, like, your story isn't written by anyone else. She says this to Rey. So in the back of her mind, she's probably thinking like, I don't think Kylo can be saved, but I'm not going to stop you from trying because I can't write your story for you. No one can say like, you're going to fail or it's not going to work. So she does kind of toe that line, but I didn't personally enjoy the line when she said, I don't think Kylo can be saved, which I think she might've said in Last Jedi too. So, maybe she
said, well, in the first movie, she said something like to Han, like, bring our son home.
Right.
And I think in this script, she says, my son is gone.
Yeah.
So I think on some level, it's not that she doesn't think Kylo can be saved. I just think she believes that the person she loves physically does not exist anymore. I think she, like, through the Force, feels like Kylo has completely smothered Ben. And I just don't think she feels his presence anymore.
But so for the record, she does say, I do not believe Kylo can be saved. I think she does specifically say that in a line. But yeah, so I think what you're saying is right. Yeah.
So I think what she's telling, I think what she's trying to do here for Rey is absolving Rey. So if Rey needs to do what she needs to do or whatever she thinks is right, she doesn't have to hesitate thinking that she's going to hurt Leia.
Right. The burden isn't on her. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Leia is just telling her the truth. Like, I don't think Ben is here anymore. If you strike down Kylo, like, don't take it as killing my son. My son is already dead, which I think is a very sad moment, but that's not the part I hearted.
Okay. Then go ahead, because I was gonna jump to the action sequence, but if there was something else you wanted to do in the goodbye scene.
So, like, we got a very clumsy delivery in the movie we got about Finn and being Force sensitive. Mostly it was in this, like, rom-com way where he just would constantly say, there's something I have to tell you, and then something would get in the way. Yeah. And then we just never get that answer until, like, the very end when Rey, like, kind of sort of almost a little bit dies, and Finn's like, I kind of sort of think Rey might be dead. Like, I'm like, okay, that
was really awkward in Rise of Skywalker. I have to tell you something.
Like, it literally happened 3 or 4 times.
You guys in love? Are you guys in love?
Yeah, it literally happened 3 or 4 times. But when they all say they do their goodbyes and Finn watched the Millennium Falcon rise out of the sinkhole, Finn goes, good luck, Rey. And then we cut into the Millennium Falcon and then Rey goes, you too. So it's not even like them saying it's not even like them saying it to themselves, like, good luck, Rey, but she's already gone, and her saying good luck, Finn, and he's already gone. The way she answers you too is a great way of using dialogue to show that she can hear him.
It's kind of like Leia in Empire Strikes Back when Luke reaches out to save her.
Yeah, like
for her to save him.
Yeah, she can definitely hear him, and she's answering him, not repeating him. Yeah. So I feel like I gave a big heart for that because I felt like that was a not clumsy way to show that they are connected through the Force,
And that's why you're here. I'm good at the visual media, but the screenplay media, it's much harder for me to dissect some of these things because I just kind of read through it like a book, but not as much with the all that stuff. But yeah, visual media, I'm good. But this is why you're here, which is good. Yeah, that's an awesome way to do that. I agree.
Yeah.
So the next,
we have this awesome set piece.
We have this awesome set piece, which is basically like the First Order found their base and they do, basically a bombardment, kind of like what happens in Last Jedi. And they're escaping and it's just mayhem. But this time,
it reminds me so much of Hoth.
Yeah, I kind of got more of the Last Jedi because it was just an orbital bombardment. It wasn't a ground
okay.
assault. It was just all orbital. So, and basically in this one, they basically say like the ship was so strong that it basically broke the planet apart. Like it wasn't a planet destroying ship, but it was blowing this planet to pieces. So
Yeah.
basically there's this whole thing. I can't like describe all of it to you, but basically everyone's just getting off in a hurry. The Millennium Falcon with Poe, Rey, and Chewbacca are being chased by the Knights of Ren in their ship called the Knife Nine. Odd name, but that's what it is.
Are there 9 Knights of Ren?
Maybe, but the ship called Knife Nine, that's like saying Millennium Falcon 8. Like what?
Yeah.
Like is there
I would
8
have just
in there?
called it the Knife.
Yeah,
Like,
the knife would have
I
been
feel
cool.
That's fine.
Yeah. Knife's fine. So basically you get kind of a callback to Empire Strikes Back when they're like dodging the debris field.
Asteroids.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the Millennium Falcon is basically dodging like mountains and waterfalls. That's how they describe it. Like there's just mountains everywhere. So they're dodging that, and they basically get away. And the Knife Nine, couldn't catch up to them there, but we'll see them later, obviously. But a really cool set piece.
Into it.
What do you mean?
Like we actually get to see into their ship. Like they're not just like a ship flying around shooting lasers. Like they actually cut into, and we get to hear them talk. Which
I forget their names, but there's like there's one of them is like a set of brothers or something.
Jada Gren.
Yeah, so I think there's like some tension between them. I forget.
Yeah, Lori, Ott, and Hatsaka. Those are the names we get.
Interesting. Yeah.
Lori, Ott.
Lori Ott. L'Oreal. Lori. Laureate, all of that. So yeah, the Falcon escapes. And then we cut to what I think is the coolest scene in the movie, hands down. Kylo gets to Ramnacor, which is where, Sidious said to go. And what?
Okay. I have a very different take on this scene, so I'm really excited to hear you.
Sure. So Kylo's on Ramnacor, which is where the Emperor told him to go. This is where he'll find Torvalum, this Sith master who trained Plagueis. And the way they describe this planet, I mean, how sick is this description? It's a black planet veiled in silver with white lava. I mean, come on. That is so sick. I would have literally, like, my eyes would have just, like, melted if I saw that in the big screen with a Star Wars budget. Like, it would have been
you
so
didn't
awesome.
Like a giant dark planet with giant dark pyramids wandering around in the dark? You didn't find that visually stimulating?
No, I did not. I want white lava, I want silver, and I want jet black surface. Sick.
I want to see stuff I've never seen before, please.
I know. I'm in the Star Wars galaxy. I want to be taken somewhere where Mustafar, that's red lava. That's very basic. I want white lava. I don't know.
I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for white lava.
I just want white lava, honestly. So Kylo does end up finding Torvalem, who's this cool Sith-like master. I forget how they describe him. He's supposed to be very, grotesque looking.
Let me see. The mountain of junk moves from it. As we disguise within comes Torvalum, 7,000 years old, an alien of unknown origin, spindly and tense, sinew and muscle pulled tight.
Okay.
I kind of envisioned the guy from Dune.
Okay. I think there was concept art. He kind of looks like not like a spider. He almost looks like a spider on top of like a glob of body or something. That's kind of what it was gross looking.
Yeah. When I read that, I envisioned the bad guy from Dune, but like with the face of Snoke. That's what I thought about.
Fair. Yeah. I
didn't know what alien Snoke was either.
Yeah. I looked at the concept art, so I kind of had an idea, but yeah. So I think he's kind of described as the stronger than anyone we've seen in Star Wars, at least in the dark side, kind of. They kind of describe him as that. And when Kylo tries to like, what's the word for it? Kylo tries to strong arm him with the Force. Like the guy literally like laughs at him. He's like, "You are a child," and you get these cool like backstory that we don't really get with the Sith. And Tor's kind of like, explaining it. He's like, Sith are unrepentant, remorseless. You are haunted by your past. You're not worthy of my teachings because you're still held on to the past. The Sith don't care about what they've done before. And then he says this awesome line. He's like, the living force is nourishment. The more you consume, the stronger you become. Take life to cheat death. And that's like the ultimate selfishness, which, as we all know, the Jedi or the light side of the force is selfless. The dark side is selfish. And the fact that you're literally taking someone's life for your own gain is the ultimate selfishness, which I think lines up perfectly with Sith ideals. And I like how he lays it out. I think it's cool. So
Yeah.
I want to hear
And
your
this is-
thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is where I got confused, and it's where I connected it back to my original meh moment with the holocron.
Mhm.
I just don't see, like, I see the plot, I see the philosophy, I don't really see the story logic. Once again, you have this 7,000-year-old Sith who just be chilling on this mountain in this random planet, not bothering nobody, but somehow is like a master Sith, but doesn't care. Then this little rinky-dink guy comes and shows up, tries to like force him, no pun intended, into giving him his power and teaching him this power. And he's just like, no. And then he gives him all this information. And I don't know, it just felt like, I was like, what is this character's motivation right now? Like, why would he teach Kylo how to steal the living force? Like, why wouldn't he think, oh, if I teach this sorry, I almost cursed. If I teach this if I teach this guy how to take the living force, what's stopping him from taking it from me? And it was just very strange. I was like,
well, that's kind of the hypocrisy for Sith, is they always think they're more powerful, that they can't be betrayed. Like that's like their biggest flaw. I think even Sidious says it, like Plagueis taught him, or we think he taught him how to restore life, and he ended up killing him. It's like the rule of two. Like they're always so what's the word?
Arrogant.
Yeah, they're so arrogant to the point where they can't think their power can be taken. And I think that's literally a line in Clone Wars or something. Like the Sith are so arrogant to the point where they think their power is endless or it can't be taken.
I can see that. But then also it begs me to ask, why did Sidious want Luke to go to this place? Because that's originally who this plan was for. Like,
my guess is Tor is the only one who knows where Mortis is. I think the biggest thing in this is that no one knows where Mortis is, but they want to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Sidious couldn't get to Tor or whatever, or couldn't get to Ramnakor at the time or something. I agree with you. I don't know why Sidious wouldn't just do it himself. But yeah, I think the point is that no one knows where it is, and this guy does. So he's like, you guys got to go to him to find it.
Yeah. So that's my only like gripe with this part of the plot, is just, I feel like events are just happening. I don't feel like there's a lot of cause and effect on Kylo Ren's side of the story. Like, there's no real reason for Kylo to be where he's at, other than the fact that the plot's asking him to be there. There's no real reason for any of this to be happening, except for the fact that it is. Like, it doesn't
advances
really
the plot.
Yeah, it doesn't feel motivated right now. And that's just how I feel going as of right now with Kylo. The only thing that's motivated is his hunt for Rey. That's the only thing that's motivated, but I don't really see why. Yeah, I just feel like this is where the script would have probably had some deep rewrites.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have changed a little more.
Yeah, like I feel like the motivation for Kylo would have been the same, but I feel like the methodology in that motivation needed to change, because right now it just doesn't make sense. Like there's just no sense there. But let us continue.
But I do love this dark tone and getting some Sith backstory.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the philosophy is there.
I think it's a very good and very unique take, and I think it would have been cool to see.
I agree. I think the philosophy is there. I think it's on point. I just think the plot element of it needed work to make it make more sense and support what was already being good in that scene.
And that concludes part 1 of the Duel of the Fate script. I really hope you guys are enjoying this as much as me and Jen did. I had no idea we would go this long, where I'd actually have to split it into 2 parts, but I think it's for the best this way. We're reaching about an hour into the episode. I'm super excited to get this to you guys next week with part 2. Once again, I want to thank you all for listening. Thank any new listeners if they're coming by for the first time because of Star Wars Podcast Day. Thank you so much for listening to us. And if you want to hear more content like this, please go over and follow my Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance. Get more of this content, or just follow it directly on wherever you're listening to, either Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast. Either way, I appreciate you all. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.